Today's daf is daf Nun Aleph, Maseches Nedarim. We are the third line from the bottom of daf Nun Beis. Zok the Gemara. Yoyim the Mechayich Bei Rebbe. There was the day that Rebbe laughed or smiled. Asu Peronus Alma. There was Peronius that came to the world. Amalei leBar Kapara. So Rebbe told Bar Kapara, Loy tevadichon, don't make me laugh, please. V'yehivna loch arbin grivechit, and don't make me laugh, and I will give you with beschar this, I will give you 40 measurements of chitim, which I guess was large. Some amalei lechsimar. So Bar Kapara told Rebbe, let's see, the chol griva de beina shakilna. So Bar Kapara basically told him, I'll take whatever measurements I want, whatever I would like. Shakal, so Bar Kapara took dikula rabba, a big basket, chafye kufra, and he smeared it with like tar on the inside, he smeared it that it should be solid and nothing should go through the cracks or the holes. The sachve al reshe, and he turned it over, he put it on his head. Va'azav amarle. And he went and he told Rebbe, Leichel li mar, arbin grive chitin derashinabach. So he put this thing on his head and he told Rebbe, measure me out these 40 meters of chitin you told me you can give me. And he was trying to get him to laugh apparently. So achoch Rebbe, Amarle, Rebbe laughed and he told Bar Kapara, Lav as hartich loy tavatchen, didn't I warn you that you should not make me laugh? Now that you made me laugh, I don't know you the chitim anymore. Amar lei, so Bar Kapara told Rebbe, Chiti derashina kana sivna. I did not come to take the 40 minutes of chitim that you made with me in the deal if I don't make you laugh. Rather, I came to take Chiti derashina kana sivna, other chitim that I lent you and you owe me and whatever, and I want to take them back. Amar Bar Kapara lebrati de Rebbe. Bar Kapara told the daughter of Rebbe, Lamachar shasinacham. Tomorrow I will drink wine. Berikuda da'avuch, when your father dances in front of you. Uvekir kane di'imach, and when your mother. So the Yomi Nedarim explains that he wasn't afraid of her mother singing in front of him or dancing, because he knew that his Yetzer Hara was nichnat to him and he wasn't choishish to koyel isha. Zok the Gemara, Ben Alasa chasnin de Rebbe Hava. Ben Alasa was the son-in-law of Rebbe, va'asher gadol Hava, and this Ben Alasa was he was a rich person. Azmanei lebehilula de Reb Shimon Rebbe. So Rebbe invited or it seems like Rebbe was invited to the chasana of Reb Shimon Rebbe. Amar le Bar Kapara le Rebbe. So Bar Kapara told Rebbe b'shas chasana, my toyeva. Why did the Torah write by Mishkav Zachar toyeva? So called Amar le Rebbe, every explanation Rebbe gave, the hachin hu toyeva pracha Bar Kapara. So Bar Kapara slugged it up until at the end, Amar le Rebbe told Bar Kapara, parsheat. He said, you explain it. Amar le Bar Kapara told Rebbe, I'll explain it. Teisi diveschi, but your wife should come. Tirmili natla, should pour me a small cup of wine. Asas, his wife came, Rebbe's wife came. Ramyale, and she poured Bar Kapara a cup. Amar le the Rebbe. So he told Rebbe, kum rekoidli, de'emer lach. He said, if you want me to explain it to you, then dance in front of me, and I'll tell you. Hachi amar achman. This is what the Torah said. Toyeva is neitrikun to toye atahba. That you're going away from your wife to other types. Lakasa achrina, when it came time to pour another cup, Amalei Bar Kapara told Rebbe, my tevel. How come it says when a woman is nervas behema, it says in the Torah lashon tevel? What does that mean? So when Rebbe wanted Bar Kapar to explain to him, Amalei, Bar Kapar told him, Kin yana kadma. He said, have your wife pour me a cup and I'll tell you. Amalei. And Bar Kapar also told Rebbe, Ividli, also dance in front of me. The Amar Lach, and what did I should tell you? Avad. So Rebbe did like that. Amar Le. So Bar Kapar told Rebbe, Tevel hu is belashon to me. He said, Tavlin yeshba. Meaning, like, why are you having this bia? Is there a tavlin? Mishanya hada bia min kulim bias. Does a person actually need this bia more than a person has bia, a regular adam? Then and is there a reason, Kilu, that why is nervat behema? Amar Le, and another thing Bar Kapar told Rabbi, Umay zima. What is the pshal gabiz nus? The Torah says lashon zima. Amar Le, so Bar Kapar told Rebbe, Ivid Kinyan Kadma, do the same thing. Dance in front of me, pour me a cup. Avad, so he did it to Amar Le, and he told him that it means the lashon zu mahi. That a person knows, meaning that people do not know from who this woman was this aber. That's pshat, she is zima, she was mizana. Lo yachu ben lasal mispal. So the son-in-law Ben Alasa of Rebbe could not be soivel all the zolzo that Bar Kapar was doing to Rebbe, to pour him things, get his wife, and this and that. It's konven nafak, and therefore he went out. Who ve'intase, him and his wife, mitaman from the place of the chasana. Zok the Gemara, my Ben Alasa. How do we know that Ben Alasa was a rich person? Zok the Gemara, the Tanya lo yilchina pizar Ben Alasa's ma'isav. It wasn't for no reason that Ben Alasa was spread out his wealth. Alaharis ben Tispiris shel Kohen Gadol. Only it was that he should learn the Tispiris of a Kohen Gadol, how to cut the hair of a Kohen Gadol. Chsiv, it says about Tispiris of the Kohen Gadol. Yecheskel Perak B'Mdal Pasuk Chaf. V'Roisham Yigalechu Para Lo Yishalechu Kosoim Yichsemu Es Rashayim. The Tano, we learned in a Braisa that Kosam Yichsumu means Tispires, so the Kohen Gadol Ke'ein Lul Yanis. Something more Maimol Lul Yanis. What's Lul Yanis? Amar Rabbi Yehuda Tisparto Yichidasa. A very nice and very unique haircut. Heichidami. What did it look like? Amarava Roisha Yishal Zeh Betzadi Karoi. Shal Zeh. The beginning of the top of this hair was at the side, at the main part of the root of the next hair, and meaning like not one hair went on top of the next hair. It was a very perfect cut. The Hainu Tispiris shel Kohen Gadol, and that was called the Tispiris of the Kohen Gadol. Zok the Heilige Mishnah. The Mishnah said that if someone says Kohen Tafshel Sheni Toyim, he's Mutzer Rebeir Termuta Ubedlas or Mutza. Different type of delas. My delas or mutza zaktimar. What does that mean? Amar Shmuel, kara karkuzoi. It grows in a place. It's called karkuza, and it's not included in tafshol because it never gets fully cooked. It's not something you can get fully cooked. Rav Ashi Amar, Rashi says delas or mutza is delas hatamuna beremetz. It's buried in hot sand, and it's not included in a tafshol. So the Meiri explains that this type of hatmana is not considered a bishul. Means this type of glass. It was normal for them to matman it in like sand, and he says that it's not considered bishul. This hatmana, and it wasn't rugel lafspas apas. It wasn't normal. Okay. Zak the Gemara. Esvei Ravina asked Rav Ashi. Ravina asked Rav Ashi. I guess Rav Ashi's pshat. He says las hatuna beremetz. Rav Nechemia Omer the las haramis hid las hamitzris. And he said las haramis is the las hamitzris, and this las klayim im hayavanis, and you're not allowed to plant it together. And it's klayim im haramutza. It's also klayim together ramutza. So what do we see? So we see the ramutza is its own type of delas, and it's not a delas that's a regular delas that gets hidden in remets in sand or something. So Gemara Tufta take a good kasha on Rav Ashi's pshat. Zok the Heilige Mishnah. Hanoidim Meiser Kadero. Ein Aser Elo Meiser Rasachta. If somebody asks himself the Meiser in from Meiser Kadero, something that's cooked in a pot, he's only Aser in machon foods that have to come to a boil. Amar Koinim Hayor La Kadero Shani Toyim. He said he's asking himself in the Kadero that he's tasting Aser B'chol Hanasa Kadero. He's Aser in anything that happens inside the Kadero. So it makes a difference if he says Mimaisi Kadero or the Kadera Sha'ani Toyim. It says the Kadera Sha'ani Toyim is on everything and not only in foods that need to come to a rolling boil. You have to cook a lot. Since he asked himself, when he says the Kadera Sha'ani Toyim, he's asking himself if anything goes into the pot. Zok the Gemara. So Gemara is going to say like this. There are cooked foods that in the beginning, when you cook them, you boil them a lot in a pot, and then when you finish cooking them, there's a slower cooking process to it. Then the art of shilim that you do not have to bring them down to slower cooking process afterwards. So the Gemara is gonna discuss in which cases is a guy usher when he makes a neder in these types of foods. Zok Gemara. Tanya, we learned in the Brayso. Hanoider min ayor lekadera. If somebody asks himself in something that goes into a kadera, usher b'yor le'ofas. He's also usher if something if it goes into ofas and the second part of the process of cooking. Why? Shekvar yor lekadera koyim sher le'ofas, because it was already in a kadera. But if he's noider min hayor le'ofas, then his mutter and hafshal goes into kadera. But if he said I'm also something goes to Elfas, then he's mutter for something that goes into a Kadera because it's going to go into a Kadera and it's going to go into Elfas and not into a Kadera. Another halacha in the Brayso, min hanasa b'Kadera, for something that gets done in a Kadera, he's mutter b'nasa b'Elfas. And mutter if it goes into a Elfas, even if it's normal to put it to boil it first in a kadera before it goes into the office, because Lamaisa, when he said menanasa b'kadera, he meant that the entire cooking process is in a kadera. Also menanasa b'office, mutter menasa b'kadera. If he said for some person's noider from if it's done in an office, he's also mutter in if it gets done in a kadera. What does that mean? It means the tafshal that's nigmar in a kadera. And even though one might put it, he puts it in the elfas into a slow cooking process. But since the main thing, it came to a full cooking in the kadera, then it's going to be mutter. Because you don't consider that nasa the elfas if it came to its full cook in a kadera, although you're putting it into office afterwards. If somebody says that I'm asking myself if anything that goes into an oven, then he's only aser b'pas in bread. But in other foods that get cooked in an oven, he's not aser. Because when something goes into the oven, yor latanu you mean pas. Vim Amar Kol Ma'aseh or alive says anything goes in the oven, then he's also b'chol anasim tanur on anything that gets cooked in an oven, because the guy has kavana to aser anything that goes into oven. That's what he said. Zog the Heilige Mishnah weiter. So the Mishnah over here is going to continue on Amud Beis, top of Amud Beis, to discuss different things what are considered in different Lashonos in Nedarim. So if somebody says he's not having hana from a kavish, min ha-kavish, something that gets soaked in vinegar, ein aser elam a kavish shel yarek, so he's only aser in something that gets soaked from vegetables that get soaked in vinegar, but from other foods that get soaked in vinegar, he's mutter for him to have hana. Why? Because when he says min ha-kavish with a hay in the beginning, his mashma means things that are normal to get soaked in vinegar, which is vegetables or greens. But if he says kavashani tayim, then he's aser b'chol akvushim. He's aser in anything that goes to kavush because he said kavush, and we say that his intention was for everything. Min hashalok, if he says things that are not cooked fully. Any asa element ashalak shalbasar is only asa in meat that's not fully cooked, but other foods he's mutter to have anah. Why? Because it said ha-shalak, so things that are normal to be shalak, and the normal food is meat. But if it says shalak shani tayim, then the same halacha is also b'chal hashlukim, because we say that his kavanah was for anything that's shalak. Sakta hela Gemara. Amar le Rav Acha b'rei Rav Ashi. Rav Acha b'rei Rav Ashi, b'rei Rav Abia, told Rav Ashi, said Amar the kvish mai. What happens if a guy makes a neder and he says the kvish, doesn't use a hey and he doesn't say kvish, but he says it with a dalad. So mai, what's the halacha? The shlik mai. What happens if he says shalak, he uses a dalad, or he says the tzli, that it's roasted. The maliach, that it's salted. Mai. So that's what Gemara wants to know. What happens if he uses the word the dalad? So the Gemara heichen mashma. The suffix is what's the mashma? It's the lashon. What does it mean to say? Because that's what the dharm, the halacha, the dharm. That's what it depends on. We want to know what his intention is. Do we say that when he uses the dalid, he means he said the maliach, the normal thing that's maliach, or do we say that only a hey hayidiyah is mashma like that? The Gemara comes out that we don't have an answer to this question. It's like a good question, and we're not pushing it. So the Ran explains, Taisus explains that the lashon tiboy is kind of like a teiku, and the Ran says that because the Gemara doesn't paskin it, so we go la halacha l'chumra, that with the daled is aser in all machalim. That's the Ran. Okay. Zok the heilige Mishnah weiter min hatzali. If somebody says he's aser in things, he uses a hey. He says hatzali. Ein aser elam hatzali shal basar. It's only aser in something, in a roasted piece of meat. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Those are the words of Rabbi Yehuda. But if he says tzali shani tayim aser b'chal atzluyin, then he's aser. If he just says tzali shani tayim without a hey, then he's aser in anything that's roasted. Another halacha Mishnah, if somebody says min ha-maliach, ein aser lam maliach shal dag. He's only aser in a maliach of a fish that are salted. But other things is mutter. Why? Because we says ha-maliach, which is a hey idea. It's mashim l'chav into things that are normal to be salted. Maliach shani tayim is aser b'chal hamaluchim. But if he says maliach without a hey, is aser in everything. Zok the Mishnah weiter. Dog dogim shani tayim. If somebody says fish and then a lashon ram dogim shani tayim, then is aser in fish. Bein gedolim or bein katanim. Big ones and small ones. Why? Because when the guy says dog, he means big fish, and dogim means small fish. Okay. Bein maluchim, save the salted, bein tefelim, save they do not have the salt, bein chayim, if they are alive, and save their bein mishalom, save the cooked, or mutu b'taras trufa. But he's mutter in a big fish which is cut up very finely. Why? Because dogim is mashma dafka, whole fish, and not large fish that are cut up in small pieces. Okay, so that is mutter in. Vi betzir, and kolshkan is mutter in the fats that comes out of the fish and is mixed into fish. That's not either included in dogim when a person's doing dogim. Another halacha in the Mishnah, hanoidir min atzachna. If somebody asks himself an anah in a mixture of a lot of small salted fish, the halacha is aser b'taras trufa. Then he's also aser. So if a guy says sachna, which is a mixture of a lot of fish, he's aser in taras trufa. He's also aser in taras trufa because that has, including in sachna, is also dagam trufa. Whatever exactly it is, I guess it's a certain type of fish. But mutter betzir is mutter in the fats that comes out of the fish, and the intestines of the fish are mixed in it, and kolshin is mutter and murius, which is the fats of the fish without the intestines. So it's the different types of fats, things that comes out of the fish. So that is mutter because he only asks himself in fish and not really in the things that come out of fish. So it seems like tzir is a liquid that comes out of salted fish, and murius is fats that comes out of salted fish. So tzir is water. I guess is more of a liquid. Murius is a fat that comes out. Okay, that's what it seems like. So Ran says. Ran the Ramaschal mutter. Zok the Gemara weiter. Zok the Gemara. Tanya will learn in the Brayser. Shimon Loza says, if somebody says koinim dag shani tayim, he's aser in big fish. Why? Because it's normal to sell a big fish for itself, and that's called a dag. That's called, when you say just fish, a dag, that's called a dag. And he's mutter b'ktanim, because he's also mutter in small fish, because he says aser in a big fish because you normally it's sold as one. And he's mutter b'ktanim, but he's mutter in small fish because those usually get sold a lot at one time. So we say it was not his intention. Daga shanitim. If he says daga shanitim is aser b'ktanim, is aser small. Mutter b'ktanim is mutter big one, because when somebody says daga, it's a lashon of dag ketanim. Daga shanitim, then that includes both. Saigadelim, saigatanim are both aser. Zok the Gemara, Amalei Papa told the my, how do you know the dog shani tayim legadol? How do you know when a guy says dog, he means a big fish? So Abaye said the chsiv, it says on a pasuk Yoina Perak Beis pasuk Aleph, Vayiman Hashem dog gadol of leis Yoina. Hashem readied a large fish to swallow Yoina. So you see that dog is a big fish. In fact, Gemara v'haksiv, it says in a pasuk in Yoina Perak Beis pasuk Beis, Vayspal Yoina El Hashem Alikav Mei Hadaga. See, it didn't say Mei Hadag, it says Mei Hadaga. So you see that a big fish is also called daga, which is not like the halacha we said before. Before we said daga, somebody says daga, then he's aser in ketanim only. Good kasha. Zot Gemara halei kasha. It's not sure in this pasuk because dilma palte. Maybe the big fish spit Yoina out. The bali dag katan. And then maybe a small fish swallowed up Yoina. So when Yoina was davening in Mea Daga, maybe that was a different fish. It was a smaller fish. His second stop. Frakti Gemara, so Bezoit Shver. It says in the pasuk in Shmois Parak Zayin pasuk Chafala, V'Hadaga Asher Ba'Yor Meso. Frakti Gemara, Katana Mesu Gedol Mesu. So you can tell me that daga, small katana fish died in Mitzrayim, but not big ones. L'chayr, if the Yaor was turned into blood and there was no water, l'chayr, all the fish should have died. How come the pasuk says daga? So the Gemara, Ella daga mashma gedolim, umashma katanim. Daga, you're right. Daga is mashma both. So how come if somebody says daga is only aser katanim, what's trying the Brayser to say only aser both? You should be aser in both. So the Gemara, when daram halaych achel lashon down, right? Daga you go aser lashon that people use, and when people use lashon daga, they only mean small fish. But about in the pasuk, that's not lashon ne'adam, that's a lashon of the Torah. Pasuk in Shmoi Zayin, Perak Zayin, pasuk Chaf Aleph. Zok the Heilige Gemara weiter. Mishnah said anoidim and atzachna, and his mutter and tzir and muris and the fats that come out of the fish. Amar Ravina Rabashi, Amar Harei Alai Tzichin Mai. What's a din if somebody said he's answering tzichim? So tzichin, is that the targum, is that translation of tzachna and his mutter and tzir muris? Even though tzichin means it's a lashon of inclusion, and maybe he would include also the fats, maybe that's what it means. Zot Gemara Tibaya, we don't have an answer to this suffix.